goodness. There's so many of you. Dressed so similarly. Hello, SkillsUSA. I'm so glad. Let me just get this out of the way before we get started. I'm so glad, personally glad, to finally be here with you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming from wherever you came from to be here, for clapping and standing up when you did it. You all made me tear up a little bit there. Really, really great to see you. Secondly, let me apologize for being tardy. I'm not late tonight, but about 8 years ago, SkillsUSA invited me here, and it's taken that long for me to actually get around to it. I was just backstage now, talking to some of the other guys in the red coats, trying to figure out why it took so long for this to happen, and I started to make some notes. I normally don't use notes at all, but these excuses are valid, and I just want to get this out of the way. Dirty Jobs went on the air back in 2003, and sometime in 2004, the people that run this organization must have seen. That's very sweet. The people who run this organization called and said, "Hey, would you come and speak at our national convention?" I said, I'd love to. Let me check the Dirty Jobs calendar, and as luck would have it, I had a previous engagement in Nevada. Anybody here from Nevada? Oh, what a crazy coincidence. Any of you know Bob Combs, the pig farmer outside of Las Vegas? This guy, in 2005, I would have been here, but I had to go to Las Vegas, Nevada to meet a guy named Bob. And what Bob does is he changes, look at me walking on my water, that's very unprofessional. What Bob does is he collects all the uneaten food from the casinos, and he brings it back to his pig farm. And in his backyard, he built this giant contraption, and in it, he reduces the uneaten people food into this giant bowl of soup that he feeds to his pigs. Now, his pigs grow at twice the normal rate. He gets them to market twice as fast as they normally would. Plus, he takes care of Las Vegas's recycling. It smells so bad, I can't even describe it. But the reason I wasn't here in 2005 is because I was with a guy named Bob and I smelled like a pig. Next year, when SkillsUSA called, I said, look, I'm going to be there, just let me check. And as it turns out, I had a date in Ohio. But this just wasn't any date. This was with a woman named Kristen Stanford. I don't know if any of you saw this episode, but in Ohio, they do this snake research at a place called Put-in Bay, right? And what Kristen does for a living is kind of fascinating. She captures Lake Erie water snakes, and she takes them back to her lab, and then she makes them vomit. And the way you make a snake vomit is you squeeze it like a tube of toothpaste, right? And the stuff that comes out of the snake's mouth, well, she analyzes it because she's a scientist, and she determines whether or not the snakes are still on the verge of being endangered based on their dietary patterns. So the reason I wasn't here in 2006 was because I was covered with snake vomit with a girl named Kristen in Ohio. Next year I was sure I was going to be here. It was 2007. I looked at the calendar and I was optimistic because it turns out Dirty Jobs is going to be in Kansas. Anybody here from Kansas by any chance? Oh, that's nice. Anybody ever been to Hutchinson, Kansas? There's a salt mine in Hutchinson, Kansas. Runs from here all the way up toward the Great Lakes. I spent a week in there one day, back in whenever it was. Dirty Jobs, very, very big on farming, big on mining. We've been in gold mines, copper mines, been in basalt mines, coal mines, bituminous, and anthracite. But on that particular day, I was in a salt mine, and I learned more than I ever wanted to know about salt. You know, once upon a time, salt was more valuable than gold. Anybody know that? That's true. It's the kind of worthless stuff you accumulate in your brain when you work for the Discovery Channel, but You know, back in the day, they didn't have electricity, they couldn't make ice. Salt was the thing that made civilization possible. So I felt very good about being in a mine, but unfortunately it kept me from being with you way back in 2007. But in 2008, man, I was sure I was going to make it. But then I got a call from Michigan. Is there anybody from Michigan? Where'd you get those cool lights? Oh, they're fantastic. They don't have lights like that on the Mackinac Bridge, but that's where I went on that particular year. And I spent that day high above the Straits of Mackinac, painting the Mackinac Bridge green. Now, it's a green bridge, obviously, but the thing is, you never stop painting it. They paint it year-round, 365 days a year. And I walked all the way up the cable on the outside of the bridge just to change the light bulb at the very top. And to make a long story short, it was higher than I'd ever been at any given time, and something may have torn loose down here, and I just made a terrible mess in my own wardrobe, and I couldn't be here with you then because I pooped my pants, to be honest with you. You think I'm kidding? It happened all the time on dirty jobs. It just happened right now a little bit. I'm kidding. It almost never happens. Scary as it was up there, though, on the Mackinac Bridge, next year I was sure I was going to be here. In fact, I think I might have even committed, but then things come up in TV and I had to go to Hawaii. There's got to be somebody from Hawaii. Did you see the episode where we were washing windows in Hawaii? This is probably one of the most popular dirty jobs ever, because once again the viewers got to see me squeal real high like a 10-pound baby girl, afraid for my life. My friend Dino washes windows over there, and it's the only state in the union where you can wash windows the old-fashioned way. You sit on a 2x4, call them a bosun's chair, right? They don't use scaffolding, and you rappel down the sides of these buildings with a squeegee in one hand and a rosary in the other, and you wash windows, and you just hope everything works the way it was supposed to work. And, well, more or less it did. My cameraman got his hair caught in one of the repellers and nearly scalped him, but he's okay now. And I couldn't be here back in 2009 because I was in the emergency room with my cameraman in Hawaii. Anyhow, you get the idea. In 2010, it was Nebraska. Who's in Nebraska? I was so sure I was going to get here in 2010, but we finally had a job come through that I'd been wanting to do for years. It's a simple job, but it was asphalt paving. And I always wanted to do this job because it's such an important part of keeping our infrastructure together. But of course, we wound up outside some little town in Nebraska. I don't even know if it's on a map, but we spent the day in 110-degree heat building a road. My cameraman passed out from the heat, then my sound guy passed out, and eventually I passed out in the asphalt. So I couldn't be here in 2010 because I was passed out. But in 2011, this was a heartbreaker because we almost booked our tickets to be here, but I wound up in North Dakota. Anybody in North Dakota? North Dakota just happened to be the very last dirty job we did in the U.S. And we were up in Dickinson, and here's a crazy thing about Dickinson, North Dakota. You know what the unemployment rate is in Dickinson right now? It's like -5%. More people work in Dickinson than live in Dickinson. They come from all over. They're working the natural gas. They're doing all kinds of things. Anyway, I went up there to put up a cell phone tower. And you guys know how it is up on the high plains. 1 minute the sun's out. You're up there with your TV crew. You're shooting a show. Again, you're 400 feet in the air. And the next minute, you're in the middle of the clouds. The lightning is everywhere. And anyhow, I couldn't be here in 2011 because I was getting electrocuted in Dickinson, North Dakota. Last year I was very optimistic, but then somebody at the network had a brilliant idea. They said, hey, what would dirty jobs look like if you just went to another country? I said it'd look a lot like it looks here, only further away, really. But they said, no, you should go to Australia. So I said, all right, I'll go to Australia. Nobody's here from Australia. But that's where I was this month last year, I was in an opal mine in Coober Pedy, Australia. This is a town you couldn't find on a map, but that's where they mine all the opals in the world, in the middle of the outback. And it's a pretty exciting job. And for me, one more opportunity to go head first into a long, skinny hole I didn't want to be in the first place. But that happened. This year, finally, Dirty Jobs has run its course. We did 300. We've been to all 50 states, which brings me here in front of you. If only I had something to say. Actually, I've got quite a bit to say, but I know it's a long evening and I'm not going to take a ton of time. But I was standing backstage listening to everybody who spoke, and so many things struck me. It really is a struggle to know exactly how to address a crowd like this, because unlike so much of the country, you guys get it. You guys already get it. And for years now, and for years to come, I'll be out there with the same basic message. And that simple message is all those jobs I just mentioned, all the people that I met, from the guys who work on the bridges, to the guys who mine the salt, to the pig farmers, to the window washers, you know, they're doing pretty well. The pig farmer in Vegas, after that Dirty Jobs segment aired, was offered $75 million for his operation. He's a tradesman. He built that thing in his backyard. The show got some publicity and people wanted to buy it. Mostly they wanted to buy it because his pigs make Vegas smell funny, but the point is, that man's a success. That guy who washes windows in Hawaii, Dino, he was homeless 12 years ago. He was washing windows for food. Today, he has 50 employees and a contract for every high-rise on the main island. He's a tradesman. The people I work with on Dirty Jobs, year after year after year, always seem to do better than people think. They're continually surprised when I tell stories, and I've got 300 of them. I'm not going to tell them all to you. In fact, I'm not going to tell you any more about the show. What I want to suggest is what's on my chest. It says profoundly disconnected. And if I were to really sum up, people ask me all the time, what'd you learn? Really, Mike, what did you learn? 300 dirty jobs. And what I learned is that, well, let me say it like this. The CEO of Snap-on put it pretty well. This is the greatest country on the face of the earth. There's no doubt about it. It's not even close. I'm biased, I admit it. But I'll tell you, we've got some challenges, and we have a problem. And the problem isn't in this room. The problem is in the way a big hunk of the country thinks about the definition of a good job. This is tricky, all right? I'm gonna just take a minute and talk about it because I'm not an expert on any of this. I just know what I've seen over the last 8 or 9 years. And every state that I mentioned and the 42 that I didn't, people tell me the same thing again and again. They talk about how hard it is to find people who are willing to A, learn a skill, B, master the skill, and C, work their butts off. It's hard to find you guys. I was in an airport. I'm always in an airport, but this happened about 2 years ago. Walked off the plane, was walking down the jetway. Guy came up to me, dressed in a maintenance uniform. He was doing something under the plane, but he came on, he said, "Hey, Mike, I just got to stop you. I just want to tell you that wife and I love the show, and we watch it with our kids every Tuesday night. And it's really cool because we get to say to them, see all the people that do all the different things that make our civilization work. How cool is that?" And that was very gratifying, and I said, "Thanks a lot, I'm glad you watch." And about halfway through the food court, out in front of a Sbarro, some other guy comes up to me, about the same age as the first guy. He's wearing a 3-piece suit. He looks prosperous, and he says, "Hey, Mike." And I say, "Yeah." And he says, Just want to tell you, love Dirty Jobs. Watch it with my wife and our kids every Tuesday. I said, oh, good, I'm glad to hear that. He said, it's so much fun. You know, the people are interesting, but it's nice to be able to say to our kids, see what happens if you don't go to college? Now, being a gentleman with impeccable manners, I didn't bother to point out that he was a schmuck. In fact, what I did was, I thanked him for watching my show. Because shows like Dirty Jobs simply reflect the thing that most viewers already believe. It's virtually impossible to change somebody's mind with a TV show. It's impossible to change their mind with a 30-second commercial. So how do you change this guy's mind? How did this guy start to think the way he thinks? And how is it that we've wound up with a country divided over the definition of a good job? Look, people talk about the differences between conservatives, liberals, Democrats and Republicans, and red states and blue states and whatever. I see the difference in this country between those two people. The first guy who looked at a show like Dirty Jobs and saw a reflection of what matters to him, and the second guy who saw it the way he saw it. So the way I see it is we need to have a conversation, a big grown-up conversation. And I'll tell you why. You guys probably know a lot of this. Everybody knows unemployment's high, right? You guys read the headlines, you're smart people. You know about the skills gap too, right? It's getting wider. There are 3 million jobs available right now. There are 12 million people out of work and another 8 million people who aren't looking anymore, and yet 3 million great jobs are available. What's going on with that? I was in Vegas again a couple months ago. I love that you guys are listening. That's fantastic. I ran into a woman who runs the local Caterpillar dealer down there. We had an amazing conversation. I told her what I was up to, and she said, Mike, you can't imagine. We have over 20 positions available right now in heavy equipment repair. All right, some of these jobs start, 40, 50, 60 grand, and with a couple years of experience and the right training and certification, which, by the way, they'll give you for free, you can be making 6 figures. They can't fill the jobs. They can't fill them. I hear this story not just from Caterpillar, but companies all over the country are struggling to find people who are willing to learn a skill, be really great at it, and work their butts off. And I've been walking around trying to figure out how that happened. How did so many people in our country become profoundly disconnected? And I started to have this conversation with my buddies at CAT, and I'm going to tell you a very quick story. Because look, the only stories that really matter are the ones that happen to you and you specifically. This happened to me before most of you guys were born. Back when I was a senior in Baltimore, Maryland in Oh, Baltimore. So I'm a name dropper, huh? Sue me. Represent, all right. I like it. I like it. Hey, Baltimore's a rowdy town. There's no doubt about it. I was just a kid. I was 17, and I was summoned to my guidance counselor's office. Mr. Dunbar was his name. And Mr. Dunbar wanted to have a conversation with me about my future, and he began to encourage me in a pretty persuasive way to go get a 4-year degree. Now, I got nothing against a 4-year degree. Truth is, I eventually got one. But at the time, I had some problems. First of all, I didn't have any money. Secondly, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was very honest with Mr. Dunbar, and I said, based on the above criteria, vis-a-vis my lack of funds and my complete and total ambiguity, I think it's best for me to go to a 2-year school, a community college. He said, Mike, that is so below your potential. You don't want to do that. You want to get your degree, and then the world will open up for you. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and then he pointed over his shoulder at something I'm going to show you right now. He pointed at a poster that he had hanging over his desk. And this is what that poster was. Take a look at it. We'll put it up on the screen if you can't see it. But give it a good look. Here's a guy holding a degree. And here's a guy holding a wrench. And my guidance counselor says to me, which one of these guys do you want to be? Now, this is 1979. And then, of course, the caption. The caption really jumps out. How's that for a bit of genius? Work smart, not hard. This was part of a college campaign back in 1979. And some of you have heard that expression. In fact, just by a quick round of applause, who has heard work smart, not hard before? Right. Now that was kind of a trick I just did. I don't want you to applaud the sentiment. I just wanted to know, it's not just me. Later on when you're bored, not now, but Google work smart, not hard. You'll see hundreds of pages. It's become the title of books. It's become the title of efficiency seminars, whatever that means. It's on swag. It's on book bags. I got a theory. I think that work smart, not hard is more than a platitude. I think it's more than a stupid cliche. I think it's the worst advice in the world. And I think we took it as a country. I think the country's full of people right now who actually believe they can find success by working smart instead of working hard. Now, in 1979, college needed a PR campaign, and this was a part of it. Posters like that were hanging all over high schools all over the country. It worked. College enrollments went through the roof and did so for the next 30 or 40 years. But some interesting things happened along the way. Vocational education classes. Yeah, right? When I was in high school, auto shop, wood shop, metal shop, they were in every high school. They're not anymore, guys. You know that. You have replaced vocational education. SkillsUSA has essentially become the connective tissue because as a society, we stopped valuing. What else happens? Well, the years go by. People line up to get into college because, hey, it's the best way to succeed, right? All you need is your 4-year degree and everything's going to fall into place. Did that really happen? I don't know. Right now, there are a lot of people who have a 4-year degree who can't find a job. Millions more have a 4-year degree and are working in a field that had nothing to do with what they studied. But worst of all, you've got a lot of people who paid a lot of money for a 4-year degree who went into debt. We have $1 trillion of student loans on the books right now. We're loaning money that we don't have to kids who'll never be able to pay it back in order to educate them for a job that no longer exists. You know what that is? That is profoundly disconnected. Say it with me. Profoundly disconnected. So I talked to my buddies at Caterpillar about this, and they say, you know, something ought to be done. We're doing what we can. Other companies are doing what they can. So here's what I can do. You know I'm a fan. You know I love you guys. You know that you get it and so many others don't. So rather than tell you how fantastic you are, and rather than congratulate you for all that you've done and all that you're going to do, I decided to come here today to ask for your help. I'm not going to blow any more sunshine up your red jackets, okay? I'm going to ask you to help me do something. I'm going to ask you to help me change the worst advice in the world to something not so stupid, something that looks like this. Now, that's me, by the way, in the cap and gown. And standing next to me is what I'll call a much more aspirational figure. This guy, he doesn't have any student loans. This guy has a job. This guy likes what he does. This guy went through SkillsUSA and some kind of vocational training class, and he got it. This guy, well, he's educated, he's just not skilled. He's educated, he's just not trained. He doesn't know what to do. He is confused by the industrial setting in which he finds himself. This guy gets it. I really wonder what would happen if guidance counselors like Mr. Dunbar had a poster that said, work smart and hard. So this is a poster. I created it with my buddies at CAT. The old poster's down here in the lower left-hand corner and a very brief explanation of why I think it's the worst advice in the world. So now we've got this poster. What are we going to do with it? I say we hang it up. I say we hang it everywhere. I say that you guys, look, you guys are going to make a difference in your own life. You're already present for that. You're going to make a difference in your family's life. You get it. But I'm telling you, the second guy I described to you in that airport, he's out there. She's out there. Millions and millions of Americans are out there, and they don't understand the value that you bring to the table. They don't understand the importance of the jobs that I featured on my show for 9 years. They are profoundly disconnected from a couple of fundamental truths. I don't think I can close the skills gap. I don't know if we can all do it, but I do know it'll never ever happen unless we change the fundamental conversation that's going on right now. To help me do that, Caterpillar and I came out with a new website. Surprise, surprise, it's called Profoundly Disconnected. If you go there, you can get one of these posters. And if you do, and if you're feeling brave, I dare you. I double dog dare you. Get it back to your high school. Hang it up in a hallway. Find a teacher who understands. Let them put it in their classroom. Find a guidance counselor. Let them hang it up. Take a picture of it and send it back to me. And we'll make a collection of some advice that actually makes sense. Maybe a couple years from now, people will Google work smart and hard and go, oh, that's where that started. Not only do you guys get it, not only do you have the talent, not only do you have the will to make for yourselves and for your families, but I'm calling on you to go further. Go out into the world, be an ambassador for work. Spread the kind of advice that actually matters. It makes a difference. Have fun at what you do. This is the greatest country in the world, but I'm not biased at all when I tell you it's because of you guys.